You know, they say a mother's love is unconditional. It's a thread that stretches and bends but never, ever breaks. You hold your child in your arms for the first time and you make a silent promise to the universe, a promise that you will always be their safe harbor. You never, in your wildest nightmares, imagine that the harbor would one day be closed to you. For 40 years, I built a home, first with my husband, Michael, and after he was gone, my world became my son, David, and his family. I poured every ounce of love I had left into them. I thought it was my new purpose. I never dreamed that the very home I helped build would become the scene of my greatest heartbreak, or that the word burden would be the one to shatter my world. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart, if you've ever sacrificed for family, then I need you to listen to my story. Because it's about what happens when that trust is broken, and how, even at my age, I found a strength I never knew I had. Before I go on, if you're watching this and you believe in the power of second chances, or if you've ever felt taken for granted by someone you love, please do me a kindness and click that subscribe button. My channel here is my new chapter, a place where I share stories of resilience, of finding joy after sorrow, and recipes from a lifetime of cooking for people I loved. I don't want you to miss what happens next, because this story, it changes. And I want you to be here for the moment I decided to stop being a victim and start fighting back. My Michael, he was the love of my life. We met in a diner. Can you believe it? I was a waitress. He was a mechanic with grease on his hands and a smile that could melt butter. We built a good, simple life. We worked hard. We saved. We bought a little 3-bedroom house with a maple tree in the front yard. It wasn't a palace, but it was filled with laughter. It was our home. Cancer doesn't care about happy endings. It took him too soon, just a year after he retired. We were supposed to have those golden years together, travel, see the grandkids we dreamed of. Suddenly it was just me, and the silence in that little house was deafening. My son, David, he was my rock then. He was a young man, just starting his career, engaged to a girl named Lisa. He'd come over every Sunday, help me with the yard work, fix the things Michael used to fix. I was so proud of the man he'd become. I felt anchored. Then, one evening, he and Lisa came over for dinner. They were so excited, their faces just glowing. They'd found their dream house. A big, beautiful 2-story in a lovely neighborhood with a garden that, they said, had my name written all over it. But it was just out of their reach. David held my hand. "Mom," he said, "we have an idea. It would mean the world to us. What if you sold this house? You could use the money to help with the down payment, and we'll build you your own perfect in-law suite. It has French doors that open right onto the garden. It'll be your home forever. We'll be a family." A family. That word? It was a siren song to a widow living alone. The thought of being surrounded by my son, my future daughter-in-law, the grandchildren I hoped for, of not being lonely anymore, it was everything. So I did it. I sold the house Michael and I had built our life in. I didn't hesitate. I handed David a check for a significant part of the down payment. The garden view suite was indeed beautiful. It was smaller than my old house, of course, but it was sunny and it was in my son's home. That was all that mattered to me. For years, it was good. I was Grandma Evie. When my grandson, Jake, was born, my heart exploded with a love I'd almost forgotten. I became the live-in babysitter, the chef, the gardener. I woke up early to make David's favorite pancakes before work. I stayed up late with a colicky Jake so Lisa and David could sleep. My pension check? It wasn't huge, but it went straight to the household. Groceries, little treats for Jake, new curtains for the living room. I never thought of it as my money. It was our money for our family. I weeded that garden until it was the prettiest on the block. I planted roses and tomatoes and lavender. That garden was my masterpiece. I'd look out my French doors and see Jake playing on the lawn, and I'd feel a deep, profound peace. This, I thought, is what it's all about. This is the promise kept. But, change happens so slowly, you hardly notice it at first. Like a vine creeping up a wall, you don't see it until it's already covered the bricks. Things started to shift with Lisa. At first, it was little things. She'd make a comment about how I folded the towels differently, or she'd rearrange the kitchen cabinets after I'd cooked, saying she just couldn't find anything. I'd laugh it off. Different generations, different ways, right? But the comments became sharper. She started talking about privacy. She'd say things like, "It must be nice to have your own separate space. David and I feel like we're always on display." Or, "My friend Stacy uses her mother's suite as a home office. It's just so much more practical." Every word felt like a tiny paper cut. Small, but they stung. I started to feel like a guest in what was supposed to be my forever home. I'd retreat to my suite more often, just to avoid the tension. I tried to talk to David about it. I'd say, "Son, is everything okay with Lisa? I feel like I might be in the way." And he'd always pat my hand and say, "Don't be silly, Mom. You're a blessing. Lisa's just stressed with work. You know how she is." I wanted to believe him, so I tried harder. I cooked their favorite meals more often. I took over all the grocery shopping. I made sure the house was spotless before Lisa even got home. I was trying to earn my keep, a thought that now breaks my heart. I shouldn't have had to earn a place in my son's home. Not after everything. Then came the fall. It was a silly thing, really. I was out in my garden, reaching for a particularly stubborn weed near the rose bushes. My foot caught on the hose, and I lost my balance. I tumbled over. It was more shock than anything else. I had a bruised knee and a very wounded pride. But the way they reacted, you'd think I'd broken my hip. David came running out, his face white as a sheet. Lisa stood on the porch, her arms crossed, not saying a word. They insisted on taking me to the emergency room. The doctor said I was fine, just to take it easy for a few days. But that fall, it was like a key turning in a lock. It was the excuse they'd been waiting for. A week later, David asked me to sit down in the living room after dinner. Lisa was there, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch. Jake was upstairs. The air was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. David couldn't look me in the eye. He stared at his hands the whole time. "Mom," he began, his voice tight, "we've been talking. This fall, it scared us. We can't watch you 24/7. What if something worse happens? What if you're in the shower and you fall? What if we're not here?" My heart started to beat so fast. "David," I said, "I'm fine. It was a little trip. I'm not an invalid." And then Lisa spoke. Her voice was cool, clinical. "Evelyn, the reality is you're getting older. Your needs are becoming a burden. It's not fair to us, And it's not fair to Jake. We have our own lives to live. The word hung in the air between us. Burden. It felt like a physical blow. I actually put a hand to my chest. Burden? I whispered. After everything, the cooking, the cleaning, raising Jake, I'm a burden? David finally looked at me, and his eyes, they weren't the eyes of my little boy. They were the eyes of a stranger. Mom, please don't make this harder. We found a place. It's lovely. Serene Meadows. They have activities, people your own age. You'll be taken care of. I was in shock. I couldn't form words. I just sat there, my world crumbling around me. Serene Meadows. It sounded peaceful, but all I heard was goodbye. But the true betrayal, the one that still takes my breath away when I think about it, happened a week later. I had a routine doctor's appointment, just a checkup. When I came home, feeling perfectly fine, I walked into my suite, and my life was in boxes. My suitcases were on the bed, half filled. My photographs were taken down from the walls. My little trinkets, the porcelain bird Michael gave me on our first anniversary, the shell Jake found for me at the beach, all packed away in cardboard. And Lisa was standing there, holding a glossy brochure. Serene Meadows. We thought it would be easier this way, she said, without a hint of emotion. We've arranged everything. A car will be here in an hour. An hour. I looked for David. He was in the garage, pretending to organize tools. He couldn't face me. My own son, the little boy I'd rocked to sleep, whose skinned knees I'd kissed, whose college tuition I'd helped pay, had packed my life away while I was at the doctor and was now shipping me off like an unwanted parcel. That was the moment my heart didn't just break, it turned to dust. The first few weeks at Serene Meadows were a blur of gray. The walls were beige. The food was beige. My spirit felt beige. I'd sit by the window in my small room and just watch the clock tick. I felt erased, like my life, my love, my sacrifices had meant nothing. I was just an old woman in a home, waiting. The other residents were lovely, but many were far less capable than I was. I could still cook a full Thanksgiving dinner. I could still tend a garden. I could still balance a checkbook. But here, I was treated like someone who needed help tying her shoes. It was humiliating. But then, something in me snapped. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the sight of a resilient dandelion pushing through a crack in the pavement outside my window. Maybe it was the memory of Michael, who always told me I was the strongest woman he knew. Maybe it was just that I'd hit rock bottom, and the only way left was up. I decided I would not go quietly into this good night. I would rage. But my rage wouldn't be loud. It would be smart. It would be precise. I started with a nurse named Angela. She had kind eyes, and she always took an extra minute to talk to me. One day, I broke down and told her everything about the house, the betrayal, the word burden. Angela listened, and then she said something that changed everything. "Evelyn," she said, her voice low and serious, "did you ever sign any legal documents for your son? A power of attorney, perhaps?" A cold shiver went down my spine. Years ago, right after Michael died, David had come to me. He'd said, "Mom, just to be safe, you should have a power of attorney. So if you ever get sick, I can help you with your finances, make medical decisions. It's just a precaution." It had sounded so sensible, so caring. I'd signed the papers without a second thought, trusting my son completely. I told Angela I had. Her face grew grim. "We need to get you a lawyer," she said. "A good one." Angela helped me contact a local firm that specialized in elder law. A woman named Sarah Jenkins took my case. She was a pit bull in a pantsuit. She started digging. What she uncovered, it was worse than I could have ever imagined. The power of attorney I'd signed, the one that was supposed to be for my protection, had been used as a weapon against me. David and Lisa hadn't just used it to authorize my move to Serene Meadows. They had used it to remortgage the house. My house. The house I had provided the down payment for. They had taken out a second mortgage, a huge loan, against the equity I had built. And what was the money for? To fund Lisa's new business venture, a high-end boutique that had, according to the financial records Sarah uncovered, failed within 6 months. They had taken the roof over my head, the security I had worked my entire life for, and gambled it on a failed dream. And then they had called me the burden. I sat in Sarah's office looking at the bank statements, the loan documents with David's signature right next to mine, forged by him using the POA, and I felt a cold, clean fury. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was a crime. Sarah looked me in the eye. "Evelyn," she said, "we can fight this. We can sue for elder abuse, for financial exploitation, for fraudulent conversion. We can have the power of attorney revoked immediately, and we can put a lien on that house so they can't sell it out from under you." I didn't hesitate for a second. "Do it," I said. My voice didn't even shake. The lawsuit was filed. The papers were served to David at his office. He called me that night. He was hysterical. "Mom, what is this? How could you do this to us, to your own family?" I was calm. A calm I didn't know I possessed. "You declared me a burden, David," I said. "So I decided to give you a real one. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." The legal battle was brutal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, fighting my own child in a courtroom. He and Lisa hired a slick lawyer who tried to paint me as a confused, fragile old woman who didn't understand finances. They claimed the money from the remortgage was for, quote, home improvements that would benefit us all. But Sarah was brilliant. She produced the records of the boutique. She had the real estate agent testify that the in-law suite was a condition of my original financial contribution. She showed the judge the stark difference between my small pension and the large loan they'd taken out. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes, saw right through them. She saw the truth. We won, decisively. The power of attorney was revoked, torn to shreds in the eyes of the law. The judge awarded me a settlement, a large one. It wasn't just the amount of the second mortgage. It was for damages, for emotional distress. It was enough to give me back my financial security and then some. It was enough to reclaim my life. And the lien on the house? It meant they couldn't keep up with the payments on 2 mortgages. They lost it. The big, beautiful house with my garden was gone. The fallout was swift. The public record of their actions, the shame of it was too much for their marriage to bear. Lisa left David. She took Jake and moved back to her parents' state. She couldn't handle the embarrassment, as if she'd had no part in it. David was left with nothing. No wife, no son living with him, no house, and a mountain of legal debt. And then he came to me. He showed up at the door of my new apartment, A lovely, bright place in a vibrant, independent living community where I have my own kitchen, my own space, and friends my age who play cards and go to the movies. I have a life, my own life. He looked hollow, broken. The anger was gone from his eyes, replaced by a raw, aching regret. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. We were wrong. I was wrong. Lisa, she pressured me, but that's no excuse. I was weak. I lost everything. Please, can we just start over?" I looked at my son, the little boy who used to fall asleep on my lap, the man who had thrown me away, and I felt a profound sense of pity and a clear, certain knowledge of what I had to say. I invited him in. I made him a cup of tea, the way he used to like it. We sat at my small kitchen table, the sun streaming in. "David," I said, my voice steady and soft, "I forgive you." He looked up, shock and hope flooding his face. "I forgive you," I repeated, because holding on to this hatred, this bitterness, it's a poison, and I refuse to drink it anymore. I won't let what you did turn my heart into a stone. Then I took a deep breath. "But," I said, "we will never live under the same roof again. That trust is broken, and some things, once broken, can't be glued back together. You have to carry the burden of what you did for the rest of your life. And I have to live in the peace I fought so hard for." He cried then. Real, heavy sobs. And I let him. I didn't hold him. That chapter was closed. He comes to visit me now, sometimes. It's strained, but it's civil. And my grandson, Jake, I see him on my own terms. He comes to my sunny apartment and we bake cookies and watch old movies. He's not tainted by what happened. He's the pure, beautiful part of my past that I get to keep. The closure wasn't in a dramatic reunion. It was in reclaiming my story. It was in looking in the mirror and seeing a survivor, not a victim. I took the word burden that they threw at me, and I handed them back a burden of truth and consequence they could never have imagined. I built a new home, not with bricks and mortar, but with boundaries and self-respect. And it is a peaceful, happy place. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you, from the bottom of my heart. My story is a painful one, but I share it because I know I'm not alone. Maybe you've felt underestimated. Maybe you've been taken for granted by a child, a partner, a friend. I'm here to tell you that your story isn't over until you decide it is. It is never too late to find your strength. If my story touched you, if it made you feel something, then please do me one more kindness. Subscribe to my channel. Let's build a community here, a harbor for those who are still finding their way. Click that button so you don't miss what comes next. I have so many stories about Michael, about starting over, and I still make a mean apple pie I'd love to show you. Leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Your words mean the world to me. Share this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Share it with a son or a daughter who might need a reminder of what a parent's love is truly worth. And finally, like this video. It tells me that my story, my pain, and my peace mattered to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being my harbor today. Remember, No one can make you feel like a burden without your permission. Don't ever give it to them.